Do you see that building right there that I'm purposefully blurring out? But like, it's right there somewhere. That is where I had my first full-time job post-college. That is where I realized that corporate was not for me. That building right there is where I had some really, really crappy things happen. And at the time, they felt like they were like the most horrible things in the world. But now I'm so thankful, because if it wouldn't have been for the job in that building and the crappy things that happened in the job at that building, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have had the courage to just like quit my job without a plan and like work from home doing some freelance stuff if the stuff that happened didn't happen. And I'm honestly so thankful for it. See this setup? This is where my business started. Yes, at that little IKEA desk, and like that was way too small for the room. And this is also where we went through a crazy, broke, no money time in our lives. I was putting diapers on a credit card on the regular. My husband literally drove trucks this whole like period of our lives from like 2011 to 2015-ish, literally drove trucks that were older than us, like early 80s model, late 70s model trucks all the time, because we could pay for those in cash from animals he could sell on the farm, and that's all we could afford. We were making our house payment and like a small car payment for me, but that was maxing us out, because my husband maybe have been making about $40,000 a year, 40 to 50 during this time, and I was barely bringing home $10,000 a year from my business. We were like super broke. Honestly, very few things stress me out, but money is one of them. Money stresses me out quicker than anything. And we were swimming in money problems. See, this office was in this house, and we had just built this house a year before I quit my job, maybe 2 years before I quit my job and got pregnant and all the things. And the house payment on this was $1,200. Now, that doesn't actually seem that much to me now, but as someone making $40,000 a year and, only having one working person, it was a hell of a lot of money. And we had no business building a brand new house and then paying $1,200 a month on the salaries we were making, even with both of us working. So this was just like, these were the broke days, okay? But also where my business started, and I can't discount that. I can't discount that iMac right there that I paid for through monthly payments from my corporate job before I quit is where I started the business. I can't negate that. But then we sold that house and we bought this one. So this house was actually my husband's grandmother's house. This house was built on the family farm too. So we built this house like in the family farm, and then we sold this actually to my in-laws, so my husband's family, and then we bought this house. And I know you can't see it good, it's just like a front door, but a much older, much cheaper, much, smaller house. And we did this because I didn't love living up there. We lived really far from town, and the older my kids got, the harder it was for that to be a thing. Like to drive 30 minutes to get them from school was very hard, and I didn't want to do it forever. But we knew with this house payment, we couldn't do that. So we sold this house, bought this house, and in our heads thought, someday, 10 or 15 years down the road, maybe we can make enough money to keep this house and then buy somewhere else. But this house was magical for us because the payment was so much less on this than our first house. I was able to take a step back and completely revamp my business by taking some time off. And when I did that, I was able to come back, charge more, have a bigger, better business. This house, actually, this office is where my business grew. This is where I went from making $10,000 a year to $100,000 a year. This is where I started my YouTube channel. This is where I started my first podcast. In this sunroom that my husband's grandmother, kept plants in and things you do with a sunroom that I converted to an office, this is where everything changed. This is where my business grew to the point where I could hire people, make more money, and position our finances in a way where we could keep this house and buy the land that we wanted to buy and build the house that we wanted to build. And we did that. And that is the house I'm sitting in right now. Now, we did eventually sell that house, but it was just because we had buyers who wanted it, not because we had to sell it. But I am sitting in my freaking forever home on a farm that we bought with our own money because of my business that I started right here. My husband is out right now feeding cows, living his best freaking life because my business, this channel, the stuff that you see me do here, enabled him to quit his job last year and start his own business. And this channel, this life, this business is all I ever wanted. And it was made possible because the girl who was living here took a risk and started designing websites with a newborn at home and quit her corporate job. It's a dream come true, honestly, because I'd always wanted to be a photographer. That was always the goal. And actually my first business was as a photographer, but I make a living with my camera and it's in a different way, but it's still very dream accomplished for me. And I get messages every single day from people who want to quit their jobs and be a YouTuber or be some type of entrepreneur or whatever. Literally every single day I get these. And I guess the point of this is that if I can do it, you can do it too. If the girl who sat here night after night until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning designing websites because that was the only time I had to work because I had a newborn and then a toddler and then another newborn and all the things. If she can do it, so can you. If I can go from putting diapers on a credit card because we literally could not afford it, from my husband eating crackers every day for lunch because we could not afford for him to eat an actual lunch out with his work buddies, if I can go from that to being able to buy our dream land and our dream house and afford the ability for my husband to quit his job and build a business that employs other people and helps them realize their dreams and do all of this really big stuff, so can you. I'm not special. I didn't grow up with money. In fact, I grew up in one of the poorest counties in the state. Still live here. I started my business in a period where I regularly had $20 in my checking account to last me 2 weeks. I spent almost 5 years of my business at first making $1,000 a month or less. I was running multiple businesses, just throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to see what would work and what I could get to make these dreams that were in my head that I knew were possible happen. And then I did the things to change it. I raised my prices. I started creating content. I started this channel. I started my first podcast. I got really good at marketing and passive income. And now I have 2 employees, multiple contractors, and a multiple 6-figure business. And I did not have the resources that you have now. There weren't online courses in 2010 when I started doing this stuff. I mean, there were, but not at the level there are now. There weren't Facebook groups full of people trying to teach you how to do the things. There weren't YouTube channels where people like me were teaching you to do the things. None of this was available. So you have an insane amount of resources and literally no excuse to do this if you want to do this. Learn the skills, do the things, work hard, make sacrifices, take risks, and you can do whatever you want to. I promise.